A prolonged war in Ukraine risks being very much worse for the European economy than even the coronavirus pandemic due to supply chain disruption, energy scarcity and inflation. Now, European inflation is already at a 30-year high of 5.5%. And the EU says that much of that increase is due to the war taking place. Now, in Spain, inflation jumped to 9.8% compared to March last year. This is the highest level there since 1985. In Germany, it rose above 7%. That's the highest level in 40 years. In Italy, the increase 6.7%. And in France, it's a record in March at 5.1%. Well, Angelica Krystle is president of ANCE Giovanni, Italy's National Construction Association. And she told me inflation has been hugely aggravated by the war in Ukraine.
Well, the war in Ukraine has accelerated inflationary pressures that have been underway since at least the end of 2020. The Italian construction sector has seen rising prices since October or November 2020. So it's an additional pressure on a phenomenon that was well underway.
So what impact could all that have on ordinary households?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, if you consider the fact that energy prices have gone up by 1,000%, household bills have gone up fivefold. It's starting to make a big difference for families' bottom line. Then you can only imagine the effect it's having on businesses, especially companies that use a lot of energy to produce their goods.
And it's not just energy, is it? It's critical materials. And the impact all of that is having on construction. I mean, from steel to ceramics, and one we might be less familiar with, cotton.
The biggest center of production for cotton in Europe is Ukraine. And so obviously all cotton supply from Ukraine, or most of it, has stopped due to the war. So my company builds infrastructure projects in Italy. And cotton is an essential component for viaducts, so for bridges, in Italy. Italy has chosen to use cotton as a key structural component for viaducts. And all of our suppliers have written to us over the past few weeks telling us that they must stop supplying us with the cotton products because they have no raw materials coming in from Ukraine. And so they have no way of quoting us or letting us know when they can actually deliver.
So building projects are going to cost more, they're going to be delayed. I mean, is there a danger, do you think, that important infrastructure projects and then the maintenance of things like bridges could actually stop altogether?
The danger is enormous, also because due to inflationary pressures, due to raw material shortages, current projects that are underway, so we're not even talking about future projects which will be built under the Recovery Fund plans, but the current projects that were perhaps assigned a couple of years ago and are currently underway are seeing massive increases in their costs. Companies are losing money every day, and so it's a twofold problem. It's a supply-driven problem and it's a cost-driven problem. It's unsustainable to think that companies will continue working at a loss.
So if it's unsustainable, if they can't continue working at a loss, what happens next? Are we going to see companies fold? Are we going to see skeletons of future building projects just sitting there for decades?
That's very possible. The scenario is pretty clear. Either governments step in and do something drastic and very strong to support companies in the sector, or projects will stop and companies will fold. There was a scary number which came out the other day, which is that around 40% of companies in the construction field risk going under due to cost increases. And that's a massive alarm bell for us to all heed.
So you want to see governments stepping in. I mean, is the situation just going to keep getting worse, or do you see an end in sight?
I honestly don't. I would imagine, I would hope that we are towards the end of the curve. I would hope that we're not going to see many more upwards pressures. I hope the war in Ukraine will resolve itself, or that there will be a solution to it. But that will not stop inflation from continuing at the current pace, and especially won't stop prices from remaining at all-time highs as they are today. I think high prices are here to stay, so there need to be long-term measures put in place. Price lists for tenders need to be revised upwards. More funds need to be deployed for existing projects, and future projects need to be rebudgeted so that they can be actually carried out, because no company in its right mind will bid for something that is below their costs.